Growing up can be challenging. You have to learn how to do lots of things, man. You got to learn how to be a person, find your individuality. You have to learn how to do lots of things. And one of the things that you have to learn is how to express your emotions and feelings in healthy ways. Now, I can tell you as a psychotherapist, this is a lot trickier than you might think. And a lot of the lessons that we learn as children, as we evolve and grow into adulthood, we end up having to unlearn them because they're toxic and not super useful and not super healthy. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and we were not trained as young boys to be able to express our emotions. And as men, it's just as important as it is for women that we learn to manage our emotions, that we learn to express our emotions, that we learn to express our feelings. Like, it's just as important of a skill. In fact, it's one of the hallmarks to people who have healthy mental health, the people who are happy and joyous and regulated and doing well in life. It's being able to express yourself appropriately. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie. When I was in middle school, and I've talked about this person before, but I don't think I've ever told this story here on my podcast. So I want to teach a lesson. I want to share this. When I was in middle school, I had a crush on a girl named Donna. Like a real huge crush on this girl named Donna. And Donna was beautiful and all the things. And my entire 8th grade year, we dated. And by the way, when I say dated, I mean in the very 8th grade context of dating, walking to and from class, holding hands, like that sort of thing, like very 8th grade context of dating. And we broke up. Don't remember why. That's not important to the story, but I always, all through high school, continued to have a crush on Donna. And I wasn't an outgoing, kind of confident person at the time, really struggling with certain things in life. So I didn't have the bravery or courage to express myself to Donna. But like my junior year in high school, it's like, all right, I'm going to tell Donna. I'm going to get myself up and I'm going to tell Donna how I feel about her. And one day in class, a buddy of mine named Seth came into class, and he was like super happy, super excited, whatever. And somebody asked Seth, like, why are you in such a good mood? And he said, I'm going on a date with Donna this weekend. And he was like super excited. They were going to go to some party together and they were going to hang out. And I was devastated. I was completely devastated. And I held that all in. I didn't tell anybody I was devastated. I ended up not telling Donna anything, like absolutely nothing. I really didn't express it at all to anybody, including Donna. And, that was it. I just shrunk into my hole of teenage brokenheartedness. A year or two later, I graduated, went on with life. I don't hear about, I don't connect with Donna for years, many years. And then Facebook gets invented. And I mean 2 decades later, Facebook gets invented, and there I am chatting with Donna on Facebook. And I tell Donna about like my ongoing crush on her all through high school. And Donna tells me, like, I felt the same way about you. I just didn't know whether you felt that way about me. And I thought to myself, I wonder what would have happened had I expressed my feelings about Donna back then. And I thought to myself, like, but that's not the environment. I was so afraid that if I told people I was sad, that they would make fun of me. I was so afraid that if I asked Donna on a date and she ended up not liking me, then I wouldn't have any place to go with that sadness or that difficulty. I was just so afraid of the consequences of expressing my feelings because it wasn't really the environment that I was brought up in. That wasn't really the environment in which we allowed boys to express themselves. Like, you had to be tough and mentally strong and get over it. But the truth was, again, in a very teenage way, I was super brokenhearted. I was really impacted by Donna dating someone else, and I was really impacted by these feelings I had as a teenager that I did not express. Only to learn 20 years later, whatever it was, via Facebook, getting reconnected with Donna, that she had similar feelings about me, and the only reason that I was not able to explore that relationship was because I was afraid to express my feelings. It wasn't conditioned to do so. And that was hard. It was hard. I mean, I'm very happy with my life has ended up, and I hope Donna is as well. But it was hard to realize that I had missed out on something that could have potentially been, powerful and positive and wonderful, simply because I wouldn't say out loud how I felt, simply because I was afraid to deal with those emotions. And we've got to have a way of helping kids navigate that so that they can be in a better position. So what's something that happened in your, male or female, whatever it is, what's something that happened in your childhood when you weren't so good at expressing your feelings and emotions and paid a price for it? Do you want to know the main reason why it's super important that you learn how to express your feelings and emotions? It's because, no matter how good you are at expressing your feelings or emotions, no matter how challenging it might be, no matter what, from one end of the spectrum to the other, there is one emotion that we're all programmed to express. There's one feeling that we're all programmed to express, and it's super duper negative. It's like our default setting, and that emotion is anger. If you just hold everything in all of the time, the way that it comes out is in anger. So one of the reasons why it's super duper important that we learn how to manage our emotions, how to express our emotions and express our feelings so that we can do that in healthy ways. Because if we don't, then the default programming of human beings is anger, is frustration. That's how we're all wired. So we have to get to a point where the breadth of the human experience, the joy, the love, happiness, all of the emotions that we have within us, we have to be able to express them, because if we don't, they end up coming out in negative ways. And the other thing that happens is when you're going through a hard moment, or when something is happening that you're experiencing is challenging, if you don't express it, then the people around you don't know how to be there for you. They don't know how to show up for you. They don't know how to console you. So today I want to talk to you about exactly why it's important to learn how to express your feelings and emotions. So I've talked a lot about my father. It's probably the most important impact of my life journey is the relationship that I've had with my father throughout the years. And I would describe my father as an angry man at any point in my life. If you had asked me, what's the hallmark of your father, he was just a super angry dude. And he was always that way. And it was a struggle for me. I felt like I was always being yelled at, punished, hit. I felt like I couldn't avoid the wrath of his anger. And then I learned something about his childhood when I was in my mid-20s. It gave me perspective, because now I look back, I actually don't think my father was an angry man at all, really. I think my father was fearful. I think my father was afraid. I think he's afraid of being abandoned. I think he's afraid of people not being there for him. I think he's afraid of being alone. I think my father lives in a constant state of fear, but I've never in my life heard him say that. And the thing I learned about his childhood, which I won't express here, that's his story to tell, but the thing I learned about his childhood is the kind of thing that would reasonably, to any fair-minded human, produce that kind of fear, right? It's the kind of thing that to any reasonable person would cause that kind of experience. And I've never heard him talk about it. And it is a profound thing. I've never heard him say a word about it. He never said anything to us as kids. I don't remember him saying anything to my mother, his wife. I don't remember any of that. And I realized he parented from the perspective of being completely fearful of not being important to his children. He parented from the complete perspective of being afraid that his children would one day abandon him, that his children would one day leave him. He parented from that perspective, and because he never expressed that emotion, because he had never talked about that in any reasonable way, it always came out as anger and frustration. But as a child, I can't decipher that. I just felt like I was always upsetting him and always disappointing him and always scaring him, really, which would cause him to scare me. That's how I felt. And had he given any inclination that he had been through something difficult, even as a child, I would have reassured him. Because when people go through the kind of trauma that my father went through during his childhood, and there was one particular thing, I'm sure there were lots of things, but one particular thing that I learned about that happened, and when people go through those kinds of things, what they need is reassurance. And I would have been happy to provide it. Like, children are great at that, and I would have done it. But he didn't express it, so now I can't do it. I didn't learn about it until I was in my 20s, and a lot of damage had already been done. So I say all of that to say it's important that we learn to express our feelings and emotions to prevent them from coming out as anger, which is kind of like the default setting of humans. If you don't learn how to express any other emotion, it comes out as anger and ends up causing harm in the relationship around you. So here's my encouragement is like, have the conversations with the people around you, with your partners, with your children, with your best friend. Like, share all of the emotions, even the hard ones, because I promise you the ramifications are going to be positive, long lasting, and make a massive difference. I think the key to being able to express your emotions is just being aware of what emotions you're experiencing in that time and what the true nature of them are. And you have to get good at checking in with yourself and being honest with yourself. Now, look, I'm not a perfect person. In fact, I'm just as flawed, if not more so, than everybody else. But one of the things I think I do really well is checking in with myself and being aware of what I'm experiencing and trying very hard to be honest with myself and the world about what I'm experiencing. I think that's comes from the childhood that I had and always kind of checking in with myself on how I'm doing, even though there were times when how I was doing was really bad and really a massive struggle. It was super helpful for me to learn that skill and has proven beneficial throughout my adulthood. And it's important to be able to express your feelings and emotions, but that starts with just being really aware of what feelings and emotions you're experiencing so that you can express them and share them. Like, you can't share them or express them if you're not aware of what they are or where they are coming from. That is super duper key. And we have to be able to do that thing. And I want to talk about that today. So when I was in college, I remember living on a college campus at Texas Wesleyan University. And there were these 3 neighborhood kids that used to be on our campus all the time. And they would play on our basketball hoops. And they seemed like 3 brothers. In theory, I don't actually know, but they seemed like 3 brothers. And they were always around. And they would annoy me because, like, I'm a student at this campus, and I would go out to the basketball court, and there would be these 3 kids there that I'd have to deal with, and it would annoy me, and I would find myself thinking, they don't belong here. I wish they would go away. And I had to check, like, where is that coming from? And I had to remind myself, like, they have every right to be on this campus. Like, they have every right to be here. And I had to be aware of that, I had to check in with myself. And I think, and as a consequence, I didn't treat them badly. I did not ask them to leave, never. Even though I could feel my annoyance with their presence, I had to be very mindful on, like, where is this coming from and why, and then behave according to the truth. And the truth was, I just didn't feel like dealing with kids, at 19 years old. And that's a me issue. I don't think enough people do that. Like, in the field of psychotherapy, I practiced something called solution-focused brief therapy. And, from the very first time I gave a lecture, people would say, like, you're a very good lecturer, you're a very good lecturer. And I was so excited to get that kind of praise and feedback. Like, it legitimately meant the world to me, meant everything to me. But it also put me in harm's way without me realizing it. And over the next several years, some of the people that were prominent lecturers before, I arrived in the field were very upset with me, and they would behave in very unusual ways. I have a really good friend named Chris. Chris is a lot older than me, and I would ask Chris, like, hey, man, what's the deal? And he was like, people are just really envious of you, but it's coming out in these messy, negative ways. And I would be like, but aren't they aware that it's envy? And shouldn't they be aware of how they're treating me and the impact of this? And I came to realize that most people, even psychotherapists, which is a scary, frightening phenomenon, but most people are not aware of what emotions are driving them, and they end up blaming the other person. I hadn't done anything wrong, just like those 3 neighborhood kids who would find themselves on our campus. They weren't doing anything wrong. I hadn't done anything wrong. I just had the audacity to come to a conference and offer to present my work via workshops. I happen to be good at delivering lectures and speaking engagements and that sort of thing. And as a consequence of being good at it, it brought hatred and envy and jealousy and poor treatment. I didn't do anything wrong, but those people never really evaluated that. They never, I remember one person saying, I don't know what it is about him, I just don't trust him. Another person saying, like, he seems to be just all about himself. And they would just make up these things. And by the way, there's a psychological term that I can't currently remember, that in order for you to justify your negative treatment of another person, you have to assign negative traits for them that may not currently be there. Right? So if I'm going to do something awful to somebody, I have to justify that awfulness by assigning a trait to them, like untrustworthiness, or something like that. And that's what they would do. And it would hurt me, like, devastating. I was like, holy cow. But looking back, I realized, man, like, being aware of your emotions and feelings so that you can express them is very, very challenging. And my evidence of this is from a community of psychotherapists, and they were having a hard time doing it. So look, if this is hard for you, I totally understand. If this is a challenge for you, I totally get it. It's a challenge for lots of people. But I want you to spend some time just checking in with yourself about the emotions you have so that you can express them. Expressing negative emotions can be challenging. Like when you feel bad and you have something happening that you experience as disturbing, it can be a massive challenge. But in order to have healthy relationships, you have to be transparent about your feelings, both good and bad, both positive and negative, both loving and frustrations. You have to be able to get it all out, because a real relationship isn't just some sort of like rose-colored thing. It's an honest relationship. And unfortunately, occasionally there are some difficult things that happen, and you have to be able to voice those. You have to be able to give context to those. You have to be able to let people know that something is happening, and in the hopes that it will lead towards change. In the hopes that, like, the thing I'm experiencing or the thing another person did, something somebody did to hurt your feelings, it will be addressed, and those sorts of things won't happen any further. So how do you do it? How do you sit somebody down that you love, that you care about, whose feelings you don't want to hurt? How do you sit them down and say, hey, not everything that's been happening between you and I do I experience as positive? Not everything that's been happening between you and I would I like to see continuing to happen. Let's have a real talk, and let's see if we can lead to some change. And I'm going to get into that today. So, and this happens all the time. Like you're in scenarios now, like I'm in scenarios now where there are challenging things that happen, and I have to be able to sit down with people close to me and have conversations. I run a business, a very large business. And I work with some of my closest friends. Some of the people closest to me are my employees. And there are times where I have to sit down and say, something you said or did is not good. Not I want to see continue. Can we talk about it? Now, a really strong relationship, again, it's not a relationship where you're just sharing positive things and everything is just always positive. That's not real. A really strong relationship is where everything is transparent and there's honesty present. And I've had to have lots of conversations throughout the years with people that I'm really close to that I want to change. But here's the thing. When you have these conversations, the goal cannot be for the other person to change. The goal has to be twofold. You have to do these two things whenever you have these conversations. The first step is 100% full honesty. You have to talk to the person and say, here's what transpired. Here's how I feel and or felt about it. Here's why I experienced it as challenging. And here's what I would like to have it be in the future. Here's how I would like it to be different between us. Right? So that's just fully on honesty, like full honesty, full transparency, all those things. But you have to understand that you're not having this conversation to manipulate the other person into changing. So in essence, you have no control over whether or not that other person does in fact change. That's actually not how this works. They have every right to change, and they have every right to not change. So it is possible that you're going to tell somebody that you're hurt, that you're upset, that something has bothered you, and it's possible that they're not going to change. So what we have to do is to be able to develop the ability to say, if the desired change does not take place, if the thing that I want doesn't happen, here's how I'm going to respond to that. That's called giving somebody a boundary. So a real conversation that involves expressing negative feelings and emotions and things that you experience as challenging has those two parts. Number one, full honesty. And by the way, you can be honest with care. You can be honest with compassion. You can be honest with empathy. It doesn't have to possess anger attached to it. In fact, anger will ruin it. And then the second part is a boundary and saying, here's the thing I'd like to change. And if that thing does not happen, here's how I will be different. Here's what you will notice about me in response to the change I want not taking place. So now you know how to have conversations where you have to express negative feelings and negative emotions, and you have to express those things to people that you care about. So go off and have wonderful relationships, because these kind of conversations must be had. So if you are harboring a difficult experience or a difficult emotion with somebody, this is your opportunity to sit them down and practice this way of communicating. I promise you, it'll make a difference in those relationships. Most of the time, when we're in a dynamic where we are afraid to express our emotions, or hesitant, maybe it might be a better word, to express a negative feeling or emotion that we have with somebody, the thing that's driving us brings us to anxiety, makes us not want to do it. We hold back, we hesitate, we don't talk about what we're feeling, we don't talk about what's going on, we don't talk about how we're feeling about it. And it gets worse, and it builds up in our head. And then we go into that conversation with like our dukes up, and then when the person notices that, and then they come back at us the same way, and it turns into a fight or an argument. But when you can have a clear, level-headed conversation about the way things are happening and how you'd like to see them change, it's a whole nother experience. Like, it really is. And the most common thing that happens is when you're feeling negative about something, and you're like, I got to get this off my chest, and I got to say this to this person, I got to express myself. Because this is a relationship where the person cares about you, because this is a relationship where like the other person wants to see it go well as well, it ends up working out in your favor. It ends up being something where the other person is like, you know what? Sorry, I didn't mean for that to happen, and I'm going to feel better about it. I'm going to do better in this scenario. And then you're like, ooh, massive relief and, all those things. So I'm going to tell you today about a time where I was in a situation where something bad happened between me and a very, very close friend of mine. And a conversation I had to have with him that was really, really awkward and uncomfortable, but changed the direction of our friendship in a really positive way. So when I was in college, it's going to be a funny but personal and true story. When I was in college, my best friend Matthew was dating a girl that I introduced him to. She was a friend of mine. I introduced him to her, and they started dating. Now, she wanted to get way more serious, and we were like 19 at the time. I'm 48 years old now, but it was a long time ago. She wanted to get more serious with him, and he was a teenager. He didn't want to get super serious with her, and she was complaining to me about him not wanting to be so serious. And she was saying, I don't just want to be dating around, and I don't want to be like messing around, and I don't want to be just like some girl to him. I really want to be his girlfriend. And she was just complaining and complaining and complaining. So eventually I said, well, if you don't want to be that and he doesn't want to go to the next level with you, maybe you should just stop seeing him and go see somebody else. I said that out of frustration. I said that just to be saying it, because I was tired of her complaining to me without doing anything differently. So she without me knowing, tells him, right? She tells my buddy, his name is Matthew. You've heard me talk about Matthew all the time on my podcast. She tells Matthew that Elliott suggested we don't date anymore. So she tells Matthew that I said that. So Matthew starts getting kind of short with me, and I didn't know why. So I had to ask Matthew, like, hey man, like, what's up? And he told me what this girl said. And I remember feeling so bad because Matthew was mad at me because I involved myself into something that had nothing to do with me. Matthew was mad at me because it was just a personal thing that I shouldn't have said. And it gave me the opportunity to sit down with Matthew and explain myself. Like, look, man, I wasn't telling her to break up with you. She didn't tell you the whole story. She was just complaining so much that she wanted to date you in a more serious way. And I was just sick of her complaining about it. So I just said, like, stop complaining about it. If you want something to be different, do something different about it. If you don't want to be his, like, casual dating person, then stop doing it. And he was like, man, I get it. I totally get it. I know you didn't mean anything bad by it. And we hugged it out. And to this day, Matthew is my very, very best friend. And anytime we're going to have a hard talk or anytime something difficult comes up, we know that we can handle that hard talk within the strength of our relationship. And the reason is because from the very beginning, that conversation, even though Matthew and I were very, very close, that conversation happened within like a year of me knowing him. But because of that conversation, it created a pattern where there was always honesty and transparency between me and Matthew. I never have to guess or wonder what he's thinking, what he's up to, or any of those things in relationship to me. And he never has to wonder those same things about me because we've always been 100% honest with each other. So if you want to have a healthy relationship, you've got to be honest through those things. Matthew could have just ignored me and that would have disrupted what has become a 30-year friendship. I could have been uncomfortable by that and just think, oh, if you're going to be short with me, then screw him. I'm going to be short with him. But that didn't happen. We reconnected and it created a dynamic between the two of us where honesty and transparency are at the center of our relationship, which has made us much closer friends. Thanks for being here. If you wouldn't mind doing me a super huge favor, I would love it if you would share this podcast with at least one person in your life that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And also don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you listen to your podcast. And also follow me on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can search for my name, Elliott Connie, or at Elliott Speaks. That's my handle across all platforms. Can't wait to see you tomorrow.